Just know that everything behind me soon to pass away. Ballin' on our own island, no castaway. I was trying to learn the craft, I can't masquerade. Every time we make magic, yeah, gotta have the cake. They say the flowers in May spring from the showers in April. Burning sage by the pound, all of our crystals is labeled. Try to line your re with meditation, you able, and you might get a read. Tarot cards on the table, and she better have her altar in her living room. Really ever lighting candles cause she in the mood. Not to mention love spells she was sending through. Jump a tissue too old soon if you feeling blue. It feels strange to find a guide on a voyage. No, you ain't the same, I can feel it in your aura. Came on point like the horns of a Taurus. Say you won't change, better take that thing to oil. Have to thank the constellations for the day they made you. Shit, ever since a minor, I've been playing major. Call me Private Ryan, I was trying to save you. See the stars is all the line and they designing greatness. So I be racing when we only chasing soul ties. You finna be the centerpiece of my soul tribe. No twin flame soulmates from an old life. So I'm thinking Mauricia and you know why.
That girl bad, that girl bad. You don't wanna feel a black girl, right? You don't wanna make a black girl mad, but they always want with the black girl. I ain't talking about no rabbit in a hat trick. I say how it happened, this black girl. Magic. I ain't talking about no rabbit in a hat trick. I say how it happens, this black girl. Magic. And she gotta have a altar in the living room. Really never lighting candles cause she ain't a fool. Not to mention love spells she was sending through. Jump petition to her soon if you feeling blue.
They say the flowers in May spring from the showers in April. Burning sage by the pound, all of our crystals is labeled. Try to line your re with meditation, you able, and you might get a read. Tarot cards on the table.
That girl bad, that girl bad. You don't wanna feel a black girl, right? You don't wanna make a black girl mad, but they always want with the black girl. I ain't talking about no rabbit in a hat trick. I say how it happened, this black girl. Magic. I ain't talking about no rabbit in a hat trick. I say how it happens, this black girl. Magic.
The story goes, I only get so much more info. Message from my dude through my oracle, and it's all on cue. I don't wanna know how the story goes, I only get so much more info. Message through a dude through my oracle, and it's all on cue. I think it's a connection to the Congo, or maybe it's a head being Shango. Back when the Bulls had Rondo, we was rocking red and white. Come outside, cause I'll be outside on my vibe, but it's all on you. Let the spirit teach us, don't sleep on my reshine. I see why, Aifa is your name. It is your name. I don't wanna know how the story goes, I only get so much more info. Message from my dude through my oracle, and it's all on cue. I don't wanna know how the story goes, I only get so much more info. Message through a dude through my oracle, and it's all on cue. It's a method to the message, just the process. I ain't stressing and I know we making progress. It's a lesson shadow boxing in the darkness, and it's all on you. Come outside, cause I'll be outside on my vibe, but it's all on you. Let the spirit teach us, don't sneak on my reshine. I see why, Aifa is your name. It is your name.
I feel the unholy spirit when it's moving through.
Dark side, dark side.
Clearing up all the lies and the rumors too.
Dark side, dark side.
You say you want my life, you gotta fight me first.
Dark side, dark side.
Come outside round here, there's nothing like church.
Dark side, dark side.
Come and get this life work.
They talk talked about Jesus. Give them something to Babylon. Just know my whole team is battle tested and battle strong. One world speaking that Tower Babel tongue. Cold Hammurabi thinking ancient Babylon. No pun intended, Reaganomics had us under avalanche. We took off like a rocket, they was praying we could never launch into the upper echelon. You can never be yourself. Every day is Comic-Con, fast money Ramadan. Who collected Comic-Con? Cold check my vital signs. Motel 6 float. Woke up with the brightest mind. Out of sight, out an idle mind. They hate it when you idolize. We living in the final times. Guess you Ellen Keller blind.
Spirit when it's moving through.
Dark side, dark side.
Clearing up all the lies and the rumors too.
Dark side, dark side.
You say you want my life, you gotta fight me first.
Dark side, dark side.
Come outside round here, there's nothing like church.
Dark side, dark side.
Come and get this life.
Put my soul on the altar, I never offer a sacrifice. The blood that we need for the lamb ain't never acting right. I take my path tonight, knowing that I might have to fight. I probably grab a knife and a 9. I guess I'm packing light, focus on the now. Just as much as the afterlife, I recognize the spirit is only taking up half the fight. Stairway to heaven, he won't make it up half a flight. He working, making bacon bits, probably out on the Sabbath night. Shoot for the moon, hoping to hit a satellite. You can ask him why when they see me, they call on Adonai. When we both know at the most he telling you half a lie. Feel the transition begin to happen when passing time. I came back in the sky, just like an astronaut, to say you selling Africans out. See you and asking Mike, and it's sad to say they really had it bad for Christ. And I hear the Habasha thinking they are the half
Holy
of white.
Spirit when it's moving through.
Dark side, dark side.
Clearing up all the lies and the rumors too.
Dark side, dark side.
You say you want my life, you gotta fight me first.
Dark side, dark side.
Come outside round here, there's nothing like church.
Dark side, dark side.
Come and get this life work.
Peace, peace. Power to the dark side. Power to the dark side. Definitely got to start this thing off with a special praise to the most beautiful goddess of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, Stemia, whose image is the most beautiful Whoopi Goldberg. Shout out to all my Babel builders in the building. Remember, if you are listening to this, together we are Babel. Let's build. So, what's good? What's good? Shout out to Trip D's. Power to the dark side, guy. Appreciate you in the mix. What's good? What's good? Shout out to Akasha, the high priestess. What's good? What's going on with Akasha? Appreciate y'all being in the mix. So today we will be getting into, I want to show the connection between Oba, Oshun, Oya, and Shango, right? And the reason why is because I think that all of these different, I think all four play out in you in real life. If you choose to take your path, this is all dependent on you. So we know that when we deal with Oshun, we're talking about love. We know that when we're dealing with Oya, we're talking about wind, change, transition. another thing is when we talking about Oba, and I don't think a lot of people ever touch on it, but we're talking about movement, right? Shango being the fire. Shango is the fire that ignites all three in order for that process to even be able to take place. When you want to act on love, there's a fire that sparks inside of you that causes you to act. When you feel like it's time for you to move, there's a fire inside of you that sparks and tells you it's time for you to move. When you talk about change and transition, there's a spark of fire inside of you that causes you to turn that into an action. But it works both ways, because like let's talk about like one of the things, right? If like with Oya, for instance, right? Whenever you talking about a fire, without wind, without air, a fire will burn out. So a lot of times you can have that, even though you can have that fire sparked inside of you, if you don't act on it, the fire can burn out. Another key point, the wind is what also pushes the fire in the direction that it's supposed to go. Now, all three are connected. A lot of times the story is told where there's a rift between the three wives, right? And I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm sure, hopefully y'all know. If y'all don't know, Oba, Oshun, and Oya are the wives of Shango. The When you look at it, the direction that the fire burns is determined by the wind. How long the fire is going to last can be determined by the wind. But in order for it to go from a spark into a fire, you're going to need Oya, or that force of air, in order to basically put it in the direction that it needs to go. But like I said, in order for you to turn the fire into an action, right, you have to manifest in the physical what's going on the inside. So if on the inside of you, you have the want to move, you got to take action on it. You're going to have to take action. Even when we talk about peace, it starts out with fire. There's a spark of flame inside of you that decides that you want peace. And if you really want it, you'll act on it. Let me quiet down these alerts real quick. Here we go. If you really want it, then you'll act on it. I think a lot of times, like I said, there's a lot of conversation that happens that goes on between the rift, or some would say the drama between the three wives, but I don't think it's understood how those three actually work together. Because even with the fire or the desire and the fire to love, you still need the wind in order to push it in the rightful direction. All three can be out of control. Well, really all four. Because if you can't control the fire, then you can end up burning everything down around you. If the wind is too out of control, then it can blow everything over. If the love is misguided, then you can not only be left vulnerable to be taken advantage of, but also you can act in a way that's detrimental to yourself. If you don't control your steps, when we talking about movement or the force to move, then what direction you don't know what direction you're actually headed in. Right? You said Oba and Oshun are Oya wind. Are you saying and Oya is wind? I'll see what you're saying on that. All so all four work well together. Having that wind to direct the movement, right? Wind and movement. So this was crazy when you look at it. Oya kind of gives direction in all aspects. She gives direction in which way the fire should be burning, and which way your love should be directed. She also blows, because remember, whenever you're basically, remember, what you're asking is that Oya blow out the things that you don't want. Right. Oshun. Oh yeah, you saying Oba and Oshun or water. Right. And when you're asking for the things that you don't, because this is a part of the change, right? When you ask for the change, because remember that fire, which is represented as a Shango, when that starts to burn, now you asking the wind and you decide that you want change. Now you're asking for things to be blown out of your life and for new things to be blown in. That's still connected to love, and that's still connected to your movement. But all three are action. Notice that. Love is an action. Change is an action. Movement is an action. That's right. All three can be peace, or all three can be volatile. Right? All three are an action. But you have to be able to use the fire burning inside of you in order to make them a verb. If you don't choose to make them a verb, then they're just words. Remember when we refer the remember what makes us different from the Abrahamic religion is our ability to embody the principles given to us through our spirituality. That's the difference. So if you're not embodying the fire of Shango, embodying the change and the transition of Oya, embodying the movement of Oba, or the choice, the act of moving, or even love, then you're not. Then they just become stories, just like any other story. I think a lot of times when we teach, a lot of the times we like to use the stories that most people seem to already have an idea on. They cause, just to deal with things, to debate, and stuff that usually Jesus is the example. One of the Abrahamics is the example. Sometimes you see him going over in the Kemet, using the Netaru as the examples. But as West Africans, we don't use the Orisha enough. Our stories are just as great, if not greater. And especially when we talk about acts of change, showing acts of love, and the movement behind all of it. So even though in the story, the way it plays out, there seems to be conflict between Oba, Oshun, and Oya. And what's crazy is, remember, when Oba left, Oya goes after Oba to bring her back home. So, and a lot of and you got to think about it. Even when you and it's a key to that too, because even when you decide that it's time for you to move, whether it be move on, move forward, move backwards, there can always be a change in your steps. And what's crazy is this is where love plays a vital role. Because the steps that you are taking, whether it be change, is the change out of love. When you're moving in the direction that you decide to move in, is it being done out of love? What is it that ends up burning inside of you that causes you to act on these things? A lot of times, your condition, being sick and tired of the conditions that you are in, is enough to spark a fire, is enough to spark a flame. Now you have to use Oba, Oshun, and Oya in order to move off of that fire. But all three aren't in conflict, nor are and righteously, and like I said, four. But when we talking about the three wives, The three principles behind those whys aren't in conflict when you see how they play out in self. You have to give your directions. You have to give your steps direction. You have to give your love direction. You have to give your change direction. All three need fire. But just as important as the fire is to all three is just as important to the fire or the Shango. Exactly. Shango gained his strength from his wives. Right? Shango gained his strength from his wives. And see, we wonder why we use these terms. It was the desire that burned inside of me. Well, what did you do with the desire that burned inside? Did the desire that was burning inside, did it cause you to want change? Did it cause you to flow, to move? Did it cause you to love? This is a key. If not for Oya, he wouldn't have had control over thunder and lightning. Right? That's 100%. And look at this. All three balance Shango. What else? Or the fire. That's what I say. That's why I say when you look at it, without Oya, the fire would have burned out a long time ago. Without Oya, without that wind, the fire would have smothered itself. So yeah, you can have a spark. What are you going to do with it? Is your idea that because and that's where you have to understand the fire alone, the desire alone isn't enough. That's just the motivation behind your next step, behind your action. Turning these three into actual verbs. Akasha says that the nice tie into love. Oshun is moved by the waters of Oba. Oshun and the wind. Exactly. Oya can change the direction of the fire of Shango and of the waters. And of the waters. So the wind not only has the ability to change the direction that the fire or the flame is burning in, but also the direction that the river flows. So it's not only what is being blown in and blown out, what also is being what's flowing in and flowing out. The direction that your love is flowing. And it's crazy when you look at how much, which is why you can see why Oya becomes the favorite wife, right? Because when you look at it, right, not only when you talk about, like you said, him being able to, that was one of the ways he was able to even use lightning. But you see how fire and wind complement each other. But in order for her to be able to control that fire or choose what direction, that came also with a sense of wisdom. You see a lot of wisdom that plays out in Oya. Which is wild. Because in multiple cultures we see wisdom seem to have this, it seems to be a feminine principle. So what flows in and out, which can be dealing with love, dealing with change, what direction your transition is going in. All three of the wives complement each other. And all three of the wives empower Shango. So yeah, they complement each other very well. Yeah, that's what's crazy. I mean, and you know what's wild about when you say Oya being the twin flame, you can see that he's seen, because remember the twin flame is your mirror. Your reflect is like your actual reflection. Meaning that you see a lot of yourself, or you see a lot of each other, of yourself within each other. That's what's the difference. That's what makes a twin flame a twin flame. You can have a lot of soulmates, but you only got one twin. You only have one twin. And what's crazy is when you're actually on your path, and you actually, which being on your path means that you're actually being you. In order for you to be you, this goes back into the shadow work. Which this is where that fire is going to spark again. Because when you're doing your shadow work, which is your self-reflection, and you're dealing with the things inside of you And you, because the reason why you're going inside of yourself, you want to bring out all parts of yourself that make you you, that make you unique. And when you do, you'll find the person, your reflection, your your image, the person that you see a lot of yourself in. You'll see that you'll that person to manifest in the flesh. Because remember, when Tahuti is talking about everything that is outside being the same that is within, this is only in reference to parts of yourself being manifested into the flesh. Remember, you don't see outside of your head. You can't see. So everything that is outside of your head is only a projection of what's inside. The friends around you, the family around you, the positive around you, the negative around you. All of these are only a projection of what's inside. The light doesn't come from the outside. The light is already within. That's why it's key you understand your place in this universe. You understand your connection in the universe. We see the loss in connection to the universe is what's causing the confusion. I think this was Astro that brought this out, I think, in the last episode, in the last show that we had. There's a lack of understanding in both men and women, and understanding the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And how both men and women should have a balance in both. For some of y'all, if you check your natal chart, it might scare you. For some of y'all, if you check your natal chart, it might scare you. For if you found out the amount of masculine that happened to be in your natal chart, or the amount or the amount of feminine energy that happened to be in your natal chart, it might scare you based on how you see things through the natural eye. But it's a reason why it is the divine. And when you're talking about the divine, when you're dealing with the divine, you have to see through divine eyes. So understand that what's around you is only a projection of what's already in the mind. That's why you have to go in and deal with the things that are in the mind, because you're trying to be careful of what you project. We talk about negative energy being put out by the rappers, the drill rappers. A lot of times we'll hear the drill music and we see or hear negative energy coming out. And we talk about when they get that negative energy back, that is a result of what they pushed out. Which is why we say, what are you doing in hip hop? It is the ultimate form of what? Projecting. Hip hop is the ultimate form of projecting. Whether you believe they're about it or they're not, there's something in them that is coming out in the music. And a lot of times, and unfortunately, what they put out is what they get back in the flesh. So you see it all of the time, especially in hip hop or in music in general. You manifesting things that are inside in the flesh. A lot of people will call it faking it until you make it. Fake it until you make it. But what's crazy is the universe, and I'm sure y'all heard the grand architect then told you this a lot of times. The universe doesn't understand sarcasm. So when you keep putting out that you're broke, the energy that you let off is that you're broke. All you're going to get back is broke. But when you start to project abundance, then abundance is what will flow in. When you're able to project love, then love is what will flow in. When you want to, and see, this is what was critical, because hip hop can and is, but it can be a major component to change, to transition. Now the question is how do we balance the three? How do we direct the three? How do we use, especially if we're talking about in hip hop, how do we use the fire that's in and direct it in a way where the change is actually positive, works out in our benefit? And when I say positive, I mean for us, for our best benefit. How can we use love in a way that where love is projected out, is projected, and it manifests itself in a way that benefits us? See, when we talk about Oba, not only does Oba represent movement, which you see that aspect in hip hop, whether it's the head movement or it's the body movement, but we also see Oba play out in the flow. How you decide to flow. without the proper balance of having Oshun and or adding Oshun and Oya to your Oba, meaning that your flow needs love, your flow needs direction, your flow might need change, but you need all three. And what's crazy is some you might get two out of the three. That ain't enough. That's not the balance. So you might get the flow and you might get some change, which you might be using the change of 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 how you flow on the to the rhythm. You might be using the change to manifest things that only benefit you. But remember, when we talk about voodoo, remember the first act of it is how does it affect those around you? If it's not a benefit to the village, then it's witchcraft. That's right. Flow like water. And see what we see play out with in hip hop. What you see is because remember the power is neutral. So what you end up seeing played out is actual witchcraft. Because the benefit isn't for the village or for the community or for the people, but the benefit is only for yourself. And this is when you begin getting into your fetishes. That's the difference. The fetish and the voodoo. The craft is neutral. How you use the craft, though, will determine on whether you're doing witchcraft or you're doing voodoo. Remember what Baina Bello said. Voodoo means to serve. Who are you to serve? Who are you serving? How do you serve? Are you using it? Are you using the craft to serve yourself? Or do you use the craft to serve the community? The people at large, the collective. See, it's a lot easier, which is why we talk about hip hop being dumbed down. Hip hop being in such a low state because it's a lot easier to create using the craft to serve your damn self than it is using the craft to serve the collective. Very easy. Shout out to Afro Asiatic. Appreciate you in the mix, God. What's good? Said peace, boo. The craft, the tool, I is neutral, is a neutral subject to character. Exactly. The force. The force is neutral. How you decide to use the force. is what separates the light workers and the workers of darkness. And see, that's where a lot of people are not understanding the force. They get confused because when they see, they don't understand how we can yell dark side, but be giving out that light work. They don't understand. How can you be yelling dark side, but you telling people to come and get this light work? Because this is where the light workers are. In the shadows. In order for you to be able to not only understand the full spectrum of light, but to also be able to use the full spectrum of light, you have to go into the darkest places of yourself, the darkest place of your mind. Then you can control what light you project. If you don't get control of what light that you're projecting, then you will manifest anything. And most of the things that you end up manifesting to be detrimental. So it's crazy because when you use, and this is just to bring it back, when you use Oba, Oshun, and Oya, when we just talking about in hip hop, if you keep it balanced, guess what you create? You get that fire. You get Shango. Because when people hear your music, they hear your, or they see your entertainment, however it is that you're creating, when they realize that you have the balance of all three, their next reaction is, damn, that's fire. Damn, that's fire. They can see the love. They can feel the love. They can see the transition and the change. They can relate to the direction. And it makes them move. When you're able to put all three together. You manifest Shango. You end up getting that fire. Remember the point, or the aspect that you are trying to do, you're trying to get in the zone and remain in the zone. Some of you who played basketball before, you was on fire, couldn't miss. Everything you threw up was going in. You were in the spirit and didn't even know it. You wasn't thinking. It wasn't in your mind. I'm gonna go left. I'm gonna go right. Make sure my elbows tucked in. Make sure I'm flicking the wrist all the way and I hold it. Nah, you were just flowing. You were just flowing with the wind. But you had to have a passion for it in order for you to get into that zone. And when you put all three together, once again, you got fire, Shango. Fire. So when we talk about the elements of hip hop, there probably needs to be an update. We have wind, flow, love, or the passion creates that fire. So no, even though in the story, the way that you hear the story, it seems like the three wives was always in conflict. But when you see how the principles manifest, you see that actually all three work well together. You see that all three manifest Shango. And you see that Shango is the fire behind all three. If you ever spark, you're ever out and you're trying to start a fire. One of the most important things when you sparking the fire, you're gonna need movement, meaning how you move the stick on the rock around the leaves in order to create the spark. Once the spark is created, you're going to need wind. You're going to need air. You gotta blow on it. In order for that spark to turn into a fire, you're gonna have to blow on it. What's important though is you gotta control the air that you give to the flame. Because just like without the wind, the fire will burn out. If it's too much wind at one time, you'll just blow everything everywhere. And there's the spark. The spark is still gone. So there's still control. You still have to have direction. But it is that fire that makes you want to act on your transition, your change. You have to find the fire within you. That goes into your shadow work. You have to be inside of the mind and make a decision. Do I like the person that I put out? Do I like the transition or the person that I'm out, or does it need to be a transition? Does there need to be change? And a lot of times there needs to be change. But where Obar also comes into play at is being able to flow with the change. Being comfortable with the change, with your transition. Being comfortable with the consequences that come with your change and your transition. And with Oshun, the love and that desire to and the know and knowing what you want, it makes the transition that much easier. It makes it just that much easier. I think now, and I think because since nobody else is going to do it, it is the responsibility of the dark side that now when we to be able to teach manifestation through our traditional spirituality. I don't want to hear no more about the Neteru, Osiris, and all of this other East African stuff. We had more than enough to go off of with our own teaching. We have our own principles that we can learn from. We don't teach enough from here. We don't. We don't. So understand your connection, not only the one that you have between the three wives within you, But how those three Y's manifest fire when projected in the right direction. When projected in the right direction, they manifest Shango in the flesh. Because remember, you're projecting in your music or that word becomes flesh. It becomes real. So what do you want to become flesh? What do you want to become real? And fire is also a light. So when you manifest this fire, what is it lighting up? What is it shining on? What is it exposing that you people couldn't see before? Because that's a part of it. The reason why people are saying, man, that's fire, because you expose something in a way that they hadn't looked at it before. And it was right there. It was always there. But that fire, that light from the fire that you gave out or that you manifested, it may have exposed parts of society that they couldn't see before. It might have, or that they couldn't articulate. It might have exposed parts of their own life that they couldn't quite articulate or put words to. But it was there the whole time. Because it's very, the art form is very abstract, right? We all have these same words. We're not using a different vocabulary system. The difference is how we see the words, how we view these words, how we use them, and all will determine on how they manifest. My plan is to manifest change through chaos. I think that the right amount of chaos or enough true chaos will force change. Will force change. And I don't mean controlled chaos, where a march or a protest turns into a riot. No, I mean true chaos. True chaos. And some believe that the revolution has already started. Started with a chair. Shout out to my niggas in Montgomery. I bet them folks wish they had Paul Revere out that motherfucker. A few if by land, and one if by sea. Had a nigga swim over to a fight, bro. That shit wild. Things are changing quickly. Even just after that little incident that we had in Montgomery, the way that we see each other has changed significantly. The way that we view ourselves has changed significantly. Now the question is, what direction do we decide to flow in? Do we continue to act on this fire out of love? Or will we allow the fire that sparked in Montgomery to just smother itself out? So no, today was not a teaching on the conflict between Shango and his 3 wives, but to show how they complemented each other. To show how they empowered Shango. And also how Shango empowered them. Let these 3 principles play out in your life. And I promise you, you'll manifest fire. With that being said, I appreciate all my Bible builders that are in the building. Remember, if you are listening to this, together, we are Babel. Let's build.
Just know that everything behind me soon to pass away. Ballin' on our own island, no castaway. I was trying to learn the craft, I can't masquerade. Every time we make magic, yeah, gotta have the cake. They say the flowers in May spring from the showers in April. Burning sage by the pound, all over crystals is labeled. Try to line your re with meditation, you able. And you might get a read, tarot cards on the table. And she better have her altar in her living room. Really ever lighting candles cause she in the mood. Not to mention love spells she was sending through. To petition too old soon if you feeling blue. It feels strange to find a guide on a voyage. No, you ain't the same, I can feel it in your aura. Came on point like the horns of a Taurus. Say you won't change, better take that thing to oil. Have to think the constellations for the day they made you. Shit, ever since a minor, I've been playing major. Call me Private Ryan, I was trying to save you. See the stars is all the line and they designing greatness. So I be racing when we only chasing soul ties. You finna be the centerpiece of my soul tribe. No twin flame soulmates from an old life. So I'm thinking Maurice and you know why.
That girl mine, that girl mine. You don't wanna feel a black girl, right? You don't wanna make a black girl mine, but they always want with the black girl. I ain't talking about no rabbit in a hat trick. I see how it happened, this black girl. I ain't talking about no rabbit in a hat trick. I see how it happens, this black girl. And she gotta have a altar in the living room. Really never like candles cause she ain't a fool. Not to mention love spells she was sending through. Tell petition to her soon if you feeling blue.
They say the flowers in May spring from the showers in April.
see how it happens. It's black